Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. Today, I'd like to talk about Ubik by Philip K. Dick. This novel was published in 1969, and this is the edition I read, this fancy folio edition, which I picked up almost 2 years ago, and only just now finally got around to reading it. And I'm very glad that I did, because this novel was an amazing ride. Definitely one of my reading highlights of the year. This is a kind of sci-fi mystery thriller, and it's very immersive, very captivating, and quite a multi-layered story, and it's pretty mind-boggling. So I'm not going to do an in-depth review here today. I just want to talk a little bit about why I like this book. So the first thing that struck me, and it immediately hooked me into the story, was the very strange and rich world building, which seems to be a characteristic trait of this author. And although I've not read a lot of Philip K. Dick, back when I first started this channel, the first book that I reviewed for this channel was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And one thing that I found particularly compelling about that book is the world that he created. And this is something I talked about. And in particular, the weird and wonderful technology that exists in his vision of the future. And likewise in this book, Ubik takes this to the next level. This is a world in which it's possible to prolong the consciousness of dead people after they die in a state called half-life, in which leftover brain activity is preserved while the body is kept in a state of cryonic suspension. And through an apparatus known as the protophazon amplifier, the living can communicate with those in half-life. It doesn't last forever though, as eventually the half-life period will expire as the brain signals decay after death. So we've got this fascinating idea, this half-life concept, which serves as a central novum for this story. And what's more, this is set in a world in which psychic powers are pretty common. In particular, psychic spies are the focus of the story. So abilities such as telepathy and precognition are used for the purposes of corporate espionage. And this story is told from the point of view of a technician of a psychic agency that hires inertials. So these are people who are essentially anti-psychics who can block psychic powers in others and thus protect the privacy of their clients. So they kind of function a bit like a psychic information security firm. Anyway, we've got these psychic spies and their anti-psychic counterparts, and we've got this technology which allows deceased people to communicate with the living via the medium of half-life. And these are the two most important things to understand about the world of this book. Now, aside from that, I'm not going to talk about any plot or character detail because I think that this is one book that it's really worth going into not knowing what to expect. I think you'll get more out of it that way. Just let the story unfold and enjoy the ride. But I can tell you, things do get pretty weird, pretty fast. The world that Dick creates is pretty bizarre, and as you progress through the book, it becomes increasingly disorientating. And in fact, a central theme of the novel is the nature of reality and perception. And it gets to the point where it will have you questioning what's real and what isn't. And as this accumulates throughout the narrative, the author expertly builds a palpable sense of tension and unease and paranoia, which is why this book is sometimes labeled as sci-fi horror. So it's definitely pretty dark in tone. But at the same time, and this is something I wasn't really expecting, there is quite a good dose of humour in here, alongside all of the darkness and the weirdness and the existential dread. So I think all of these elements come together, and it's masterfully done. I think it's very entertaining, it's thought provoking, and it's mind bending. So there's certainly a lot to unpack. I've only really scratched the surface of this novel here, but I can absolutely recommend it. It's a 5-star read for sure. I need to read more of this author. I've got The Man in the High Castle on my bookshelf. That's here. So I definitely plan to read this at some point. And I also want to read more of his short stories. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more science fiction content.